Hello and welcome to another episode of Scott Reads Comics. Today I'll be covering Secret Origins Annual Number 1, starring the Doom Patrol, published in 1987 by DC Comics. This is a fantastic issue featuring some incredible John Byrne artwork. Byrne was firmly in DC's camp by this time and always a fan of the Doom Patrol. He must have jumped at the chance to do this full-length story detailing the Doom Patrol's origins. Well, the first two incarnations of the Doom Patrol's origins anyway. And it starts with a clever framing sequence with Cliff Steele lured back to the Doom Patrol's old mansion, where the mansion's robotic major domo, Waldo, begins quizzing him about the origins of the original team and the second team. He starts with his own origin, basically detailing his life as a hotshot race car driver, Cliff Steele. And John Byrne, capable of drawing anything here. Look at this, he can draw cars too. Totally incredible. This action is amazing and the panel sequences are great. Going into Cliff Steele's miraculous resurrection as Robot Man after his body was ravaged by the wreck. His rampage upon initially discovering he was just a brain inside a robotic body. His move towards acceptance and crediting his revival, his saving to Niles Calder, also known as the Chief. And then we get into Niles Calder's history. I love how Byrne draws these crowd scenes here, this crowded Indian street scene as Calder is in India, meeting his much younger wife, Arani. He saves her and gives her some kind of immortality serum, which will pay off later in the second incarnation of the team. But getting ahead of ourselves a bit here, realizing someone's after him, Calder leaves Arani in the custody of some monks for safekeeping, and he goes to confront General Immortus, perhaps the Doom Patrol's greatest enemy. I love Byrne's version of General Immortus here, totally awesome. A man by the name of General Immortus. According to legends, this old geezer was losing his immortality and was desperate to get it back before he croaked. Thing of it was, Immortus was bad. So he plants a bomb inside of Calder, and in order to get around this in true comic book fashion, Calder connives to have Immortus shoot him, and then a robotic doctor somehow removes the bomb, but that results in his paralysis, in the Chief's paralysis. But he's saved anyway. And as this story is being told, this mysterious group sends these troops to the mansion to collect Cliff Steele, so that's going to pay off in a few pages. Cliff then goes into the origin of Larry Trainor, Negative Man. He was a civilian test pilot for the Air Force. I heard tell, mostly from Larry himself, come to think of it, he was one of the best since Yeager's heyday, which should explain what he was doing piloting the X-19, an experimental jet orbiter. He was taking it straight up that day, seeing how she climbed. And he got her up to something like, I don't know, over 120,000 feet when it happened. Sunspots. Silly things, right? Usually they just mess with communications and stuff, but this time they were strong enough to KO his entire control system. Also sent the plane's Geiger counter jumping like a ragtime piano. So, after his exposure to this intense solar radiation, Larry Trainor becomes Negative Man. And he gets his familiar wrappings. And obviously, he also becomes a freak and an outcast. But here, in the incredible way in which only he can do it, Byrne shows us some of the things Negative Man can do. Really cool. He didn't know what happened next. Figured he'd finally gone all the way around the bend. But the man wasn't crazy. He'd become the storehouse for some sort of being composed of negative energy. It moved almost as fast as light, could pass through anything short of lead, and it was under Larry's total control. The man didn't know how to explain it, but that didn't matter. It was a miracle. Of course, Negative Man, it's later revealed, can only stay outside of Larry Trainor's body for 60 seconds and then Larry Trainor would die. So there was always that timing thing, kind of similar to what Thor's hammer would do to him, turning him back into Don Blake. It's always cool in comics when they have some kind of timing device like that. Here these, again, we cut back to these guys sneaking up on Cliff Steele. He's upstairs, doesn't look like he suspects a thing. So then we have Rita Farr, our final member of the Doom Patrol, famed actress and Olympic athlete. She gets exposed to some strange pits of energy while filming a movie in Africa, and then has the ability to change her size and shape. Super cool. And we get, of course, on this next page, page 15, Byrne really doing up an incredible picture of our 4 core Doom Patrol members, looking really neat. And, well, actually, there's 3 members here. Negative Man and Larry Trainor are the same person, essentially. Elastigirl and Robot Man. And, of course, the Chief is the 4th member, and here we have him here. Join with me, my friends. Together we can make a difference. Well, what's your answer? What else? We are the Doom Patrol. Very cool. I do recommend people grab those Doom Patrol collections if you see them cheap somewhere. They've done 2 of them. I'm not sure they've done the 3rd volume yet. I have the 2nd volume, and it's fantastic. And here, I love, this is probably my favorite page in this whole comic. We get a shot of the Doom Patrol's Rogues Gallery here. We get General Immortus. I love Byrne's sort of almost Sienkiewicz-like take on Monsieur Mala and Madame Rogue, and we had the brain in the background there. And then the incredible Animal, Vegetable, Mineral Man. Just some of their villains were just completely zany and off the wall. Gargoax, the alien, really cool with one of his rubbery minions here. Mento, who was, guy started out using his bucks, looking for adventure and trying to romance Rita. In the long run, they got married, and I guess they expected to live happily ever after with the usual hassles along the way. And then here's Gar Logan, Beast Boy, the changeling who would become a member of the Titans. And then here, of course, this details the amazing and bizarre death of the Doom Patrol. Until Madame Rogue and Captain Zal entered the picture. They were looking to destroy us, sure, but Zal decided to humiliate us too while he was at it. He wanted to show the world we was cowards out for ourselves. He gave us a choice. Our lives for those of 14 strangers in some little New England fishing village. But we was heroes, you know. So the Doom Patrol had to die. So that was how the original run ended. Which is why I want to get those other collected volumes to have the complete story. But Robot Man is later revealed to have survived, and Will Magnus, creator of the Metal Men, finds him and rebuilds his body in this crazy remake of the Robot Man look. Very bizarre. And here we're going to get a little action as Cliff Steele's reverie is broken by the arrival of these high-tech armored troopers. And he isn't liking it. And here we see this mysterious blonde woman is actually Val Vostok, who's Negative Woman. Orders, like the insane mass of scientists thought I might like. Both irritating. Neither of them of any use in hiding what I feel, who I am, Valentina Vostok, former citizen of the Soviet Union and an officer in her Air Force, who fled the oppression of the motherland, taking with me as a gift to the American government an experimental long-range Russian fighter jet. And in much the same way Larry Trainor becomes Negative Man, Val Vostok became Negative Woman. So now we're getting into the second incarnation of the Doom Patrol. We have the rebuilt Robot Man, we have Negative Woman, and now we're going to have Irani Calder, the Chief's wife who was left in India years before. Irani invited me to stay and told me her story, how she'd met and married Niles Calder in India, and how to protect her from his enemies, he had placed her in the care of monks high in the Himalayas. It was there that her greatest powers, no doubt stimulated by the immortality serum the chief had given her, were discovered and nurtured. All the while, she was waiting for her husband to come back for her. So she becomes Celsius, I believe is her name, and she can project heat and cold from her hands, I guess in addition to being immortal. And then here we have our final member. Joshua Clay was our first prospect. He had been a troubled youth, born and raised in a Midway city slum, and troubled throughout his entire teenage years. When he was 18 years old, a judge offered the budding hoodlum a choice between prison sentence and military service. So he accepts military service. He goes to Vietnam because this is, of course, a book from the 80s, and a character in his mid-30s would have been eligible for service in Vietnam. A character in his mid-30s in the mid-80s would have been in Vietnam. But that's where his powers, apparently mutant-like powers, as Tempest manifest. And he meets Val Bostock. Perfect fodder for Randy's vision of the new Doom Patrol. Rumors picked up from the street sources of this strange derelict led us to his slum dwelling. And he was persuaded to round out our trio. We never expected to become a quartet. By all accounts, he was dead. Thus, when Cliff Steele appeared at headquarters with his new body, we had no idea of who he was. So, of course, they have the obligatory battle. And this would have been the Joe Staton artwork version of the Doom Patrol, the second incarnation. And, of course, the fight stops. They realize who he is, and they become sort of a team for a while. So, great. This is kind of a nice reflection of the previous page he did featuring the battles of the original team. Really cool. I love how John Byrne has such attention to detail as a storyteller. So here we get 4 panels showing the patrol in action against their foes. And now here we get 4 panels showing the second Doom Patrol in action against their foes. And of course, there's some commonalities, General Immortus. And the other major commonality is some weirdness too. The Cossack, a Russian automaton created to return me to the Soviet Union, provided our next challenge. And then, who's this guy here? Oh, Reactron. And so they team up with Power Girl. They have a meeting with Superman. And I love this page too. These panels are really cool. Excellent storytelling. The bandages. They were responsible for so much more than keeping the energy inside me. They also kept Joshua out. And then the arguments and recriminations, the demands and threats. Oh yeah, so at some point here, I should mention in the interim, Robot Man gets his old body back. So they go away from this sort of goofy design here that Will Magnus put him into, and he gets his traditional, what I would say, cooler body back. So by this time of this confrontation, he has it. So the center could not hold, and things fell apart. Really great use of word balloons here, or these word boxes for the exposition and dialogue, and matching it very nicely with the art. And here's that brief synopsis of that story I told you about from Titans 13 and 14. We each went our separate ways. Joshua off to study medicine under a variety of assumed names at several institutions, condensing his education into the space of 2 years. Irani dropped from sight, continuing her obsessive search for a man the world knew was dead. Cliff joined forces with the new Teen Titans, whose number included the youth he used to know as Beast Boy, to at last seek out the killers of the original Doom Patrol. Rogue and Zal were found. Vengeance was had. Really great. Now back to the present. Cliff, seemingly overwhelmed by these troops, having his garb torn apart here by them. And then it turns out they run away. I love this. Byrne has done this a number. I remember him doing this in Alpha Flight too. And I should say, I read it in the credits, but kind of glossed over it. He's doing pencils and inks here, and they're really nice. So he asks for his trench coat back. And look, pack up whatever's left in my old quarters and send it to me in California. As for the rest of this place, You can burn it all for I care. It's been a swell house, but I got me a future to look for. And this old joint's too big and heavy to drag along with me on the trip. Don't miss Doom Patrol #1 by Paul Kupperberg, Steve Lytle, and Gary Martin. And it was a pretty cool debut for a third incarnation of the Doom Patrol. Steve Lytle's artwork was banging. I think he only lasted 4 or 5 issues, though. He just wasn't a monthly penciler. He just didn't have it in him to pencil a monthly book. Little John Byrne and Paul Kupperberg sticking themselves in the shot here, I think. Pretty cool. And so we get a nice article on the history of the Doom Patrol and a preview of the new Doom Patrol here by Joey Cavalieri. And so you're going to actually get to see, this is some of that Steve Lytle artwork from Doom Patrol #1, which you can still find these issues in dollar bins, which is crazy. The Gary Martin inks are beautiful too. Really great stuff. Here's some more here. And again, this wouldn't last too long. And of all people, Eric Larson took over when Steve Lytle left the book and did a pretty cool job. And it was a completely different, 180 degrees different from what Lytle was doing. And then I think Graham Nolan came along and did some really nice work on the Doom Patrol as well. And I think it maybe went into the 20s and then was canceled. And funny enough, and folks may know this or they may not, I know John Byrne fans probably do, John Byrne would get his own crack at a Doom Patrol reincarnation, a 4th volume, which would show up in the late 90s, early 2000s and last about 18 issues. Our backup story is The Secret Origin of Captain Comet by, let's see, this one is Roy Thomas scripter, Ron Harris pencil. I said Richard Harris, sorry. Ron Harris is the penciler, Bruce Patterson is the inker. This has a nice Golden Age feel. Not going to linger too long on it, but it is just cool, so we'll take a look at it as I page through it. Captain Comet is, of course, DC's first mutant character. He had a bevy of powers, very much like an Eternal, kind of from Marvel, very much a Swiss Army knife character. Super strength, flight, space travel, telepathy. I mean, he could do it all. Telekinesis. Very powerful character. And the art in here is really cool. And of course, Roy Thomas, this is just right up his alley. He's such a comic book historian. A character like this is really in his power alley. And of course, Comet Man would get another chance at life prior to this in the 70s in Secret Society of Supervillains. So I don't know if he had appeared since then, since the ill-fated cancellation of Secret Society, but he was a major character in that title. He had some pretty great brawls with Grodd and just some pretty cool action in that title. Silverblade, some cool Gene Colan, Claus Janson artwork there. So yeah, nice story. Nice Mike Grell artwork there on that Longbow Hunters ad. A great book. Thanks to my buddy Jan for sending it to me. Got it in one of his dollar bin dives in Chicago. Some great dollar bin action there in that city if you ever live there or have a chance to visit. There's some comic stores there that have some amazing dollar bin possibilities. But yeah, an awesome John Byrne story. Some of his favorite characters. He lavishes pencils and inks on them. Beautiful storytelling. Really good job. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please like and subscribe. Tell your friends. I'll bring you more soon on Scott Reads Comics. Thanks for watching.